Democrats really did. Tell you what they did in 2024.
NBC reported the student complaints about unexpected tuition increases and the lack of transparency. I will say that this past weekend, just by default, I have seen the most Howard students like on TikTok explaining what they're going through, what they're needing, all of the things. Matter of fact, there was a young lady, like if we're making this about HBCUs abroad, there's a young lady that says Spelman, shouts out to Taylor, who is raising funds for her senior year. She needs to take care of some, housing related things and things like that. And like I amplified her GoFundMe and all the things. At this point, you did point out like the alumni network, right? Like how can we have a larger conversation about the financial strain at HBCUs and how funding compares to predominantly white institutions, but also get our alumni to kind of donate more or figure out ways to pour into these students to make sure that from year to year, we're not hearing more of these stories. To me, I feel like this is a huge influx at this point, right? That a lot of people are literally online saying what they need, and people are trying to give $5, $10, $20 where they can, but everybody's struggling, right? So it's kind of like, how do we help the students and make sure that they can get their degree or housing that they need, and then also take care of ourselves?
Before I go to bed, I wanted you to know that if you haven't heard, they have occupied DC. The National Guard is being deployed. And we are seeing the first city that is being occupied in the United States. When we've been screaming about Cop cities being built, it is to do what is happening in the District of Columbia all across the nation. If you have people in DC, reach out to them, find out what's happening on the ground.
Welcome to another edition of Let It Be Known. And those videos really speak, well, that second one really speaks for itself, Niele.
Peace and love, everybody, and welcome to Let It Be Known. Of course, yes, Stacy. But I think LA was the first city that they tried to occupy. And so they're just trying different scenarios of it. But everybody, we got a great show for you today. Lots of headlines coming from across the nation. As promised, we are going to talk about Project Esther, celebrating Shedeur Sanders taking over the NFL this weekend. And we have some Black History facts for you that will make you want to holler and make you celebrate a famous author.
Sounds good to me. As far as this morning, there will be a 10 o'clock press conference at the White House where they'll announce their actions against DC, which we know is not, whatever they announce is not going to be good. Of course, it's going to be some sort of federal takeover. There was a report that they're going to deploy the National Guard. Of course, exaggerating greatly the crime numbers that supposedly are taking place there. I mean, there have been a lot of carjackings, but not more than other cities. It's just happened to certain people, and that's what it's all about. It just happens to certain people. It's happened to certain people, and so of course this gives Chief Nakahoma at the White House an excuse to take over a democratic city. And that's really what it's all about. It's a democratic city. And so the long range plans, as we see they're trying to steal seats in Texas and other places, they want to steal the vote in DC. And that's all it's about.
Well, I think it's even a larger point is that they are trying to federalize policing across the country. As I said, I mean, they did it in LA already, right? And, with the resistance of our governor, with the resistance of the mayor of LA, Karen Bass, and the people, understanding that when you protest, You have to be a little bit more careful as to how you react and engage, although some people I don't think cared. But yeah, so they did it in California. Now they're doing it in DC. This is just a way also to deflect from all of the other crap that Trump is doing in that White House. So this is also okay. Look over here. Let's get them to focus on DC this week. And let's get all the people riled up about that. Meanwhile, he's doing 15 other things that are more detrimental to us. Although this is important, but it's always deflection with him.
Absolutely. And the first video you saw our very own Dawn Montgomery and her OK Player podcast that has taken off and is doing extremely well. Always happy for Dawn. It is, as RNG says, it's moving in week for a lot of HBCUs. And we saw the important conversation that Dawn was tackling there with her co-host. Check her out, folks. I mean, it's always some good stuff that they are going back and forth. And of course, the dress is speaking volumes there.
Yeah, the dress was speaking volumes, but I think the point of the conversation is most important, which is that, alumni supporting Black HBCUs. And we see that when PWIs, they raise a lot of money through their alumni. I mean, if I go down the street to USC, I see Rick Caruso, who ran against Karen Bass and put tons of money into his election, and he lost. There talks about him running for governor. But when you go to USC, there's a Catholic church named the Caruso Catholic Church. And so these rich people put tons of monies in these PWIs. And I think the point of what she was trying to make was that we alumni of HBCUs should contribute more to these institutions, which we've talked about before here on the show, Stacy, how important it is for us to give back to maintain these schools, especially under a Trump administration that is constantly trying to take away Pell Grants, which mostly affect HBCU students, and take away state funding, which a lot of that state funding goes to HBCUs. And so that was a very important conversation that she was having. And hopefully more of us, as we go to homecoming, as we prepare to go to homecoming this fall, as we prepare to go to the Bayou Classic, as we prepare for Spring Fest, and all those other things, that we also contribute to our HBCUs.
Yeah, it is. You said it 100% correct. It's 1000% important. It's so important, especially now under what we're seeing. And I see a lot of folks giving these large endowments to PWIs, and that's your choice. That's your choice. But also don't forget our HBCUs, and our HBCUs shouldn't be, in my opinion, it shouldn't be your okay. What I have left over, I'll give to them. It shouldn't be that. But unfortunately,
I think they'll take it. I think they'll take.
Oh, they'll take it. Yeah, yeah, they'll take it.
However you could give it, give. We're not really, gonna be mad. However you give, just give it.
just give it, right. And by the way, the Black Press will be at the Bayou Classic. Dawn will be there, as well as eToro, folks. And eToro is all things sports, among other things. So the Black Press will be well represented there, and they will be giving us some reports from there. So when the Bayou Classic happens, we will have it for you.
That's Thanksgiving weekend, y'all. Every Saturday, Thanksgiving weekend.
There you have it. Here's something I wanted to hear from the chat on Niele, and of course, I always want to hear your point of view. But we're going to talk about Black and Latino members of ICE. Sometimes you choose a line of work, and you may not always know where it might head, right? But in 2025, with ICE carrying out raids and tearing apart families, it's impossible to ignore the image of Black and Latino agents enforcing policies that devastate communities of color. Many liken them to, of course, the character from Django Unchained, or the house Negro of slavery, those who upheld the master's rule against their own. Wearing that badge now means asking yourself a hard question. Are you protecting justice, or just protecting the system that harms your own people? Is that a fair thing? Is this a fair point? Because in the end, no matter the badge or the paycheck, history won't call you an enforcer. It'll call you a collaborator. Is that fair?
Well, I mean, I think that people need a paycheck. And so I'm not concerned about a black or brown person saying, hey, I have to feed my family, especially if they voted for Kamala. I'm just saying. Um, but they're giving away free tuition. So I'm not really concerned about somebody doing something for their livelihood. I think the bigger issue is this Trump Klan administration and how they're going about enforcing it. Being an ICE agent is not a bad thing. It's a bad thing because of Trump. And so I think that, just to keep the focus on what Stephen Miller is doing, what the Trump Klan administration is doing, and not the people who are getting jobs to pay for their livelihood.
Yeah, I saw. In fact, it was in our chat. I think Greer posted the video in our chat with the black woman ICE agent, and it was a little disturbing because it sounded so much. I mean, if you turned the camera off and just played the voice, it sounds like one of those white talking points, and it was just horrible. Um, I guess you have to have the stomach. I don't know that I would have the stomach. I've said in the past that I think if I was in certain positions, I probably wouldn't have that position for long. Based, only because it's so hard. It's such a hard pill to swallow to separate babies from their families and to
Mhm.
treat people certain ways that you are expected to treat them under, like you said, Trump's ICE on a regular basis, pre-Trump. ICE was, you know, ICE. It was not this, it was Immigration, Customs, and Enforcement. It wasn't this hunt down these slaves and lock and chain them up and separate them from their families and treat them like dirt.
Yeah, for sure. But like I say, I think that it's easy, it's a deflection to focus on the common man. And I think the bullseye should continue to stay on Trump, his Homeland Secretary, Stephen Miller, and the corruption of that Trump Klan administration, because a lot of people out of here got to feed their families. It's
Mhm.
survival of the fittest. It's not something that I would do, but I also have options, thank God. You know what I'm saying? To the person who doesn't have any, that's a whole different scenario. And so I think that we should definitely just keep the focus on that Trump Klan administration and getting them out of office versus the people who are trying to survive.
Yeah, Aquarius says that ICE is another form of slave patrols.
Hmm.
Dr. Joni says, but
So it's
many of them are.
policing.
Go
Policing
ahead.
in America is another form of slave patrol.
Yeah, 100%. And Dr. Joni says, but many of them are pulling up their full face mask and are unidentified and pulling people out of cars, breaking windows. So many ICE agents are doing things that aren't humane. And of course, RNG says if we're talking about Black and Latino ICE agents, we can say, and I think he just said this, or someone said this, we can say the same about you did say it, about local Black and Latino cops. Some of them are
Right.
worse than white cops, he says. Um, so he says, Mike V says, why can't they just go work for DoorDash or Uber or something? Why ICE?
Because you know why? Because they're paying them like I think 50,000 a year. They're giving a lot of incentives. They are clearing your student debt loans, which is funny and ironic, being
Oh,
that
yeah.
you know what I mean. They want everybody else to pay back, and they're talking about Biden for forgiving student loans, but they're actually taking a play out of Biden's playbook as an incentive. Because remember, before with Biden, it was like if you were a teacher, if you were a healthcare provider, these were like the priority people who got their student loans forgiven. So they just basically took a play out of the Biden Harris administration. But Orange G is right. It's no different from policing in America, and it doesn't mean that all of these ICE agents are corrupt.
Mhm.
Hopefully, there are some good ones in there, and hopefully these states that are creating bills and laws to have ICE agents get rid of the mask. They move forward because I think that is an issue that we should be focused on, is having them remove those masks, not the A, so that we can see who these agents are, because now they feel free and emboldened to be jerks and kidnap people because nobody knows who they are. But after
Yeah.
they take the mask off, I think they will have more caution on how they move.
Yeah, and the thing is, among ICE agents are those who was part of the mob that attacked the Capitol on January 6th. There's a lot of white supremacists that they make sure to hire for that. Greer says this is the Trump regime. Our people shouldn't be involved. They will do none of this. And he says the agency this is Hitler's army. And then you see questions about whether or not they're going to really clear that student loan debt.
Right. Because we know they're
uh,
liars.
but
Liar,
they-
liar, pants on fire.
100%, 100%. So it's a lot to that. It's hard to begrudge someone employment, but at the same time, it's some of the stuff makes you cringe.
Right. It really very cringeworthy. And for me, going back to what Orange G said, I look at policing in America the same way. They were, slave patrols. Policing at its core stems from slave patrol. So whether you're an ICE agent, a federal agent, or a police officer, or an ICE agent, it still has that same its origins. Police
Yeah.
patrol, slave patrol catchers, slave catchers. And so it's embedded in the fabric of what we call systemic racism.
Yeah. Patricia Jackson says, "What's the criteria? Hate." Right.
Control,
Yeah.
control,
And
power, dominance.
Nancy Wall just puts it simple. She says, Epstein, Epstein, Epstein.
There you go. When we talk about what's happening in DC, Epstein, Epstein, Epstein.
Oh man, but I just can't. I'll leave my last thought on it is I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. I think
I couldn't
it's
be a police
horrible to
officer
see.
either. So if I
Yeah,
couldn't be
yeah,
a police officer, I couldn't be an ICE agent.
yeah, yeah. We've seen white anarchists and far right extremists make violent threats and walk away with excuses. But when 29-year-old Jawan Rashawn Porter, a black man in Georgia, went on TikTok and made vile graphic threats to kill Donald Trump, the response was instant. SWAT, Secret Service, and an arrest. His words were criminal, no question. But the lightning fast reaction says something about how justice moves fast when the suspect is black and drags his feet when it's the white man calling for violence. And really, the point is SWAT for a black man's threats, excuses for a white man's violence. That's not equal justice. That's America's double standard on full display. We saw this man arrested a couple of days ago for a TikTok he posted that was allegedly threatening President Trump.
Yeah, I saw that on TikTok. And so yeah, you do have to be careful. I don't think, it's a bad thing for anybody who threatens the police. This is like common, you don't threaten the president of the United States, whether it's Trump, Joe Biden. Now we could say it on the phone and we could talk in code,
You better say it in code, undecipherable.
If we could say things like, has it happened yet? I've seen that trend on TikTok. Has it happened yet? When is it gonna happen? Wake me when it happens, but don't just blatant say that. You should do it. You can't do it for Obama. You can't do it for Biden. You can't do it for Trump. Get a little more savvy.
It's the dumbest thing you could do is publicly threaten to kill the president. It is absolutely the dumbest thing you could do. Like you said, any regime.
It's just stupid. I have a cousin, and her Twitter handle's name was Ninja Do Something. And everybody knows what the word for ninja is. Ninja Do Something. That was her Twitter handle name. She went on Twitter. This was the first time he ran for office. She went on Twitter and threatened the president. They showed up at her house.
Yep.
They researched her. She used to be in the military. She was in the army. She was a former she had sniper training. They
Gosh.
showed up. The FBI showed up at her house and said that you are posting some disturbing tweets, and we just want to make sure that you're okay. So yeah, they do come knocking, and this was before he even was president. He was the candidate.
Mhm.
So they don't play about that. Trump, Biden, any Kamala Harris, they don't play about that.
They have some seriously funny memes about this situation, not this man, but situations similar. It's just all over, and you see all types of people posting these things. Like you said, that little has happened yet type comment. I've seen that in so many different forms, and some more hilarious than others. So, whew, people are,
I
I
mean,
think
but it's
people
clever
just,
and it's fun. That's what makes
Mhm.
it fun. Be clever, get a little savvy with it, you know.
Yeah.
Make it
I
a
just,
joke.
yeah, I think people, and the thought is that when I say people, I'm talking about all people, whether you're white, black. You seeing a lot of those who did support this administration say things like this, like this man, but say it in different ways.
Mhm.
Like you were saying, is it done yet or whatever? Um, Folks, a lot of that, as you have been saying all
Or
year,
like
that
a joke,
FAFO stuff. Yeah.
or like a joke, like I say, has his ankles popped yet? No, be funny about it.
As the ankles popped. Woo. Oh gosh. What is that with the ankles? What did they say that was?
I don't know, but it's not a good look.
Mm. Oh boy. Okay. Let's move on to some budget air traffic, folks. If you are flying on a budget, if you are looking at like Frontier and Spirit to lower the prices a little bit, well, that type of those type of prices are they are on life support, according to Frontier Airlines CEO Barry Biffle, who is sounding the alarm for travelers who depend on low cost flights, saying the age of affordable airline travel is probably coming to an end. He is warning that airlines are being forced to slash routes and flights as domestic travel proves unprofitable, meaning fewer options and higher fares ahead. And the tariffs are really, really killing them. They can't offer you these reduced flights anymore. And in fact, not only can they not offer you reduced flights anymore, but they have to make up for the tariffs and then some so they could pay their workers. So, folks, flying is about to get really expensive. It's more dangerous, but more expensive.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, that's all BS. That's what makes it the market competitive is when you have low fares, high fares, and you make it, competitive, and that helps the consumer. And so for them to see what's happened is Trump is in office. And so now everybody can be greedy with no accountability. That's all I hear is greed with no accountability. And
Not
now
accountable.
we don't have to be a cheap airline. We could gouge the prices like everybody else because who gonna check us, boo? No rules and
Well,
regulations.
yeah, Mike V. I see. I like this. He says domestic travel would be so much simpler if we had high speed trains. I'm a big Amtrak guy, and they're just now unleashing the new Acela train that is supposed to be more comfortable, wider. It's a much more sightly thing and a lot faster. So if you want to go for instance, from Washington to Boston, it's going to take off about 45 minutes or so of travel time. So the new Excella, which is my travel of choice, should be able to zip you, certainly up and down the northeast corridor, but they're going to expand it. They plan to expand that across to the Midwest and eventually all the way to the West. So travel should be a lot easier. Hopefully, all of the tests have gone well, and hopefully it continue to go well, because the last thing we want is the derailments.
Did it happen? Did it happen?
Oh,
yet?
for
Is he gone?
sure. No, 100%.
Is he past tense?
100%. But yeah, I just
Is he
it's
no
it's
longer?
gonna,
Is he deceased?
you know, travel had become a
Is he
thing
on
that
the other
everybody
side?
can participate in.
If
What's so
so,
funny?
I can
You
say
hear
it.
that?
Did anyone get the Celsius that's actually
Is it just me hearing that?
And so
You're not hearing that?
oh, I'm trying to act, you know.
Oh, okay. I just want to make sure it's not in my head. That's all. Good. I'm sorry. Go
Oh,
ahead,
it's
Nia.
okay. No, it's okay. I forgot my point.
She want to play that song. He talks too much. He worries me to death.
No, I really forgot what I was trying to ignore it and not, you know, make it so obvious. But
Yeah.
it's
Well,
okay.
Mike says there's a high-speed rail from Nevada to California that Trump is trying to stop. No kidding. You know,
Right.
that doesn't surprise at all. But thanks. Yeah, Mike, you're right.
But that might need to be stopped because it's been in production for years, you know.
Forever.
So, you know, hey, he might be
Yeah.
onto something there.
Oh boy. And speaking of the Midwest, you know, turning our attention to Gary, Indiana, where the children there certainly deserve more than a warm body in the classroom. They deserve fully licensed, qualified teachers who can actually prepare them for the future. But instead of committing to invest in and grow its own talent pool, guess what the district has decided to do? They're bringing in virtual teachers to the classroom. They'll have them on screens while pushing out local educators with emergency permits, some of whom have been serving students for years. The state says progress toward full licensure is required, but there is no cap on how long that process can take. So blaming Indianapolis is not chic, according to them. In a majority Black city already battered by years of state takeover, the kids of Gary, Indiana, simply can't afford to be pawns in an adult fight over paperwork and contracts. So, you know, if you know the Black children in Gary, Indiana, aren't worth the investment to train and retain real in-person teachers from their own community, then this isn't about education. It's about priorities, and right now they are all wrong.
So I'm just trying to understand. So are they closing the schools?
They are, instead of closing the schools, no, they're not closing the schools, but instead of having real teachers, they're going to have, well, in-person teachers. The students will be in person and the teachers will all be virtual.
So who's going to like be responsible for the students while they're in class?
Well, I would imagine, and from what I understand, let me not say I would imagine. From what I understand and from what I've seen being reported is that, of course, you'll have some teachers, but not in every class. You'll have administrators, of course, doing their jobs. So that it's not like the students will be in the building all by themselves, but most of them will have, there'll be a screen in the classroom where there will be a teacher. And so there's no real interaction.
But I'm
Um,
talking about the supervision of the students
mhm,
in the
right.
classroom. So there's no supervision
There will
for
be
the students.
classes without supervision, right?
Hmm. That could be problematic.
That could be very problematic. But the fact is that they are not having these teachers. They are pushing these teachers out. It's a contract dispute that's been going on for a long time with the Board of Education, the union there. And so this is what the Board of Education has decided to do. And the state has backed this plan to just use virtual teachers.
And are these in, you know, I would be curious just to know if these are, so this is in predominantly Black neighborhoods.
Yes.
So the
Well,
white neighborhoods will have teachers, but the Black students won't.
well, Gary, Indiana is if I'm not mistaken, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, is about 88, 89% Black anyway.
So this is only in
Um,
Gary.
yeah.
Yeah. And
So,
Indiana is a red state.
yep.
And so, yeah.
Yeah, it's big
And
business. It's all about business.
yeah, and if I recall, I heard JD Vance is trying to withdraw redistricting lines in that state as well. He held some private meetings. So it just sounds like, this Trump clan is just, any way they can, any power they have over a state, they're doing the most to set a precedent that could happen across the country.
Well, you see the what they're attacking. Education, of course, is always the one. Can't educate those Negroes. They're not allowed to get education.
They should know by now that that doesn't work. We gonna get educated, okay?
Take away their the books about Black folks and Black history and Black accomplishments. It's all it's so it follows the blueprint of slavery. It follows the blueprint in so many ways, including, of course, you have the house Negroes sticking up for them. You have that element as well, so it follows the blueprint.
For sure. That is insane. Welcome to Monday, folks.
Welcome to Monday.
Oh my gosh. And in more headlines, I mentioned to you last week we would talk about Project Esther, which I'm pretty sure we'll begin to hear more and more in the headlines as they continue to roll it out on us without us knowing. If you remember a few weeks back, they said that churches would now be able to endorse candidates. I believe this is all part of Project Esther, but Project Esther was developed in 2024 by the Heritage Foundation, which is the same think tank that created Project 2025. And it's providing a blueprint basically against all people who support the Palestinian people and who want them to have access to food, want them to have access to land. If you are anti-Israel, then basically Project Esther is coming for you. But I think the devil in the detail, funny to say devil in the detail, is that it also promotes white Christian nationalism. Okay. And if you know, there's a viral video going around where CNN reporter Pamela Brown is talking to one of the most prominent evangelical pastors in the country, and he's talking about how women are just there to breed babies, and women, they don't think women should have the right to vote. I mean, this is Christian nationalism. Christian nationalism was also the people who justified slavery.
Yeah, okay? And as I said, you have your house Negroes who go right along with it, stepping fetchits, who think they are making statements about other folks, and they never look in the mirror, because all we hear is what the other folks are not doing or didn't do or whatever, and totally blessing what the slave master is doing. So there you go. And Greer says that white Christian nationalism hates women.
Oh, they hate women. And not only that, they are a part of the Republican Party. If you have time, I would go watch a documentary that came out in 2019 called The Family. And it is about how white Christian nationalism really controls this country and the Republican Party. They basically control the prayer breakfast, the annual prayer breakfast that the president has, how they are embedded in the fabric of the Republican Party. They also own a house on K Street in DC, where a lot of Republicans stay. Very good documentary. But when you watch that documentary and you read what's happening with Project Esther, you could just see how they are well connected in controlling this country. And now under Donald Trump, and I'm thinking about Paula White, who is now over the clergy council for the White House. All of this is pointing towards Project Esther. And if you don't think Project Esther is a problem, then just look at how they're implementing Project 2025.
Yeah, and RNG saying, "Where's Black MAGA?" Well, he says, "I can't find one to discuss the 7.2% unemployment of Black people. Not even Byron Donalds will say a word about 300,000 Black women losing their jobs under Trump." RNG, they come on and watch this show. Some of these Black MAGAs, and they come on here and salute their master. Yeah, I'm sure you've noticed them. So, I mean, they here.
So yeah, so I mean, just folks, like, we're on Trump 2.0. He doesn't plan to leave the White House. You got Republicans that are doubling down. You have states that are Republican led, having redistricting hearings when you're really not supposed to have them until after you have the census, right? So they've already
Mhm.
broken that tradition, law, protocol in our country. And now you have white Christian nationalism, the very foundation of what supported slavery. They gave us the Bible, okay, and told us everything else was bad. And so we are in trouble. And then, if you just saw over the weekend, Israel shot up a media tent over there in Gaza and killed two reporters, two
Mm.
Palestinians that were reporting on what was happening to the Palestinians. They just shot and killed them.
Mhm.
Donald Trump is supporting all this. It's a lot going on. And this whole project, Esther, is anti-Palestine, anti-Palestinian people. And anybody that's caught protesting the war in Israel, you're subject to be, brought in for charges by the Trump administration. So all of this stuff is relative. And it's getting really scary out here. And
Yeah,
I just wish
well,
the Black church would speak up more, and even separate themselves and have conversations about this whole Christian thing, because I think that's why a lot of millennials um, and Gen Zers are, anti-church, because you just see no difference.
yeah, a couple comments. Shonda H says Christian nationalism is a form of white supremacy. It has nothing to do with true Christianity. Dr. Joni says the Heritage Foundation has also been making up the list of vetted white Christian nationalist federal judge options. Um, and Mike V, of course, says anyone fighting against white supremacy is a target.
Right, for sure. So we'll continue to follow Project Esther, and just like Project 25, everybody was like, and now we see FAFO. Let's be clear, folks. Project
Yep.
Esther is by the same machine. So we'll keep you posted. Moving on, speaking of faith, South Carolina is mourning the loss of civil rights activist Reverend Joseph Darby, who died just days before his 74th birthday. Now, Darby served as pastor for several AME churches across the South Carolinas. And Darby's family did not disclose the cause of death, but prayers go out to his family. And we know how instrumental, speaking of faith in church, how instrumental the AME church was to the Underground Railroad.
Hmm.
And so
Well,
we wish his congregations that, because he served several churches, and his family, peace, love, and the peace that surpasses all understanding during this time.
Bria says she has a video, Niele.
Let's take a look at it.
Maybe not. No, she doesn't have it ready. So, all
Okay,
right.
so we're going to move on to where Illinois has launched a statewide initiative aimed at helping African Americans reconnect with their ancestral ties in Africa. Now, the statewide funded Illinois Family Roots pilot program offers free DNA testing and analysis through the African Kinship Reunion Research Program. Now, the initiative is aimed to address the folks that were broken by the legacy of slavery and human trafficking. And so here it is, a state that's saying that, hey, I want to reconnect you to your roots. I know a lot of people feel or question it, especially a lot of Black folks, like, you want my DNA? I don't believe it. You're going to do something with my DNA. But Stacy, have you tried to trace your roots back to Africa through any of these?
Oh, I did it a
Yeah.
long time ago. Yeah, yeah. And gosh, what is it? It's I can't even remember the percentages, but there's which country was it? Ghana, I think, was really the predominant one for me. The country in
Yeah.
Africa. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think this is the first time a state has launched an initiative. And so Illinois is being very progressive about helping Black folks reconnect to their roots in Africa. And we really might need it because we really might need to go back if we continue to go the route we're going. So sharing is caring, y'all. Um, and let's jump into some sports headline. You know, the NFL kicked off this weekend, but I don't think this weekend was the NFL. I think it was the Shador Football League this weekend, as he dominated the headlines um, with the preseason game with the Browns taking 30-10 victory over Carolina on Friday. There were so many headlines with him. I don't even know who else played, Stacy. And I think that even the way that he addressed the media, telling them that, you know, you guys never report anything about me. It was a moment for him to reclaim his narrative and present himself the way he wanted to over the weekend. And I think as a young man, he did a fantastic job.
Yeah, it's the first preseason game, and hopefully for him and for all of those who root for him, he'll keep it up. He's able to keep it up because wow, that would be some kick in the face to the NFL itself if he goes on to be successful as that first preseason game showed. But you know what also happened during the preseason the other day? The Jacksonville Jaguars kicker Cam Little nailed a 70-yard field goal. Of course, because it's preseason, the stats don't count, but it would be by far the longest field goal in the history of football, 70 yards. That means he kicked it from the other side of the field through the uprights there,
Yeah,
70 yards.
that's
So,
amazing.
two great things, you know, in the NFL. Shedeur Sanders and Cam Little. It really gives the NFL an instant juice as they head into the new football season in a few
Yeah.
weeks.
Yeah, shout out to him, but I don't think that nobody even saw that. All we saw on our timeline was Shador. Okay. I mean, that's great that he kicked 70-yard, but I mean, even the sports channels, Shador took over this weekend. And I mean, I think that's great that that happened, but being the way that they did Shador, and for him to come and dominate the NFL this weekend, I think that that speaks volumes. His jersey started trending. Okay. And so I think this speaks volumes to the NFL. And if they have any kind of common sense, you will see a lot of Shador this season because he is the moneymaker for the NFL right now.
All right.
Just coming out the bat on the first weekend. Now, yeah, we have a full season to get to, but that headline about that kicker, I didn't see that on my timeline, and I think that is commendable. And shouts out to him.
What else you got?
And so tonight we were talking about faith. The evangelicals could do it, but Black folks, we do it better. Tonight, Live Free and the Black Church PAC is having a call about Texas redistricting. And so it's talking about the national impact on other states as we all pay attention as to what's happening in Texas. And participants include Derek Johnson, president of the NAACP, Reverend Dr. Freddie Haynes, who is a pastor in the state of Texas. We have Rep. Jolanda Jones, who we had on the show last week, Tamika Mallory, and Reverend Dr. Leah Daughtry. Now, it starts at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you can visit Live Free or the Black Church PAC for login information. But this is like the Black Church, doing what the Black church traditionally does in standing and taking up space for individuals to learn more about the impact of this whole redistricting conversation, which I think one of the narratives that is getting left out is that you traditionally don't do redistricting until you do the census, because you get the count of the lay of the land. And then we talked about last week, you brought up, Stacy, about the census and Trump wanting to do his own count, because they want to keep white pure and right in this country. And that's just not the case. And so if you want to check out this call tonight about redistricting and the role of the Black church, go ahead and visit Live Free and the Black Church PAC websites for login information.
Okay. And that's your headlines?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was waiting for you saying that's the headlines for this morning.
There you go.
There you go. So, folks, we do have some Black facts for you. On this date in 1965, a single arrest in South Central Los Angeles lit the fuse for one of the most explosive uprisings in American history when white CHP officer Lee Meniscus stopped and arrested 21-year-old Marquette Fry. Tensions with onlookers boiled over into 6 days of chaos in the heart of Watts. By the time the smoke cleared, 34 people were dead, more than 1,000 injured, and thousands arrested. The cost was a staggering $100 million in damage, but the true price was in the raw truth that it exposed about poverty, about policing, and race in America. The Watts riots weren't just an explosion of violence. They were a warning flare from a community pushed to the brink by systemic neglect and racial injustice. So on this date, 1965, an incident happened that would kick off the Watts riots.
Yeah, just a quick note to that. We no longer call them the Watts riots because, words mean something. So now they're called the Watts Rebellion or civil unrest. The riots were something that white folks put on us. And we have to begin to change our own narrative. So it is the Watts Rebellion or the civil unrest. We had this conversation last week about how when Black folks protest, we're called rioters. When white folks riot, they're called insurrectionists. We never call a spade a spade. You know what I'm saying? They could be insurrectionists. Why can't we be the Watts insurrectionists? You know what I'm saying? So that's just a term. Even with the 92, we no longer say riots, we say civil unrest because words matter, and defining our history is not just white folks to define, but it's ours to define as well as Black folks. And also today we want to celebrate the acclaimed author Alex Haley, who was born on this day. And as you know, Mr. Haley, whose work includes Roots, which was adapted into a groundbreaking television miniseries, and so many contributions to the Black experience, and want to be one of the forefronts to put our experiences on television. He was born on this day in 1921.
Yeah, it was Roots that made me first recognize how deep racism is. And it really I always think about Roots as a pivotal moment, because that's when all of a sudden I started hearing the N word a lot. I started hearing, the other derogatory terms for Black folks in the streets and stuff. Where you go and travel somewhere. And I was 9 years old when Roots came out. And it wasn't until then that, I got to a bigger picture of how deep racism really ran in this country.
Yeah, I mean, such a monumental moment for Black folks to see, just that whole experience, and for other people to see. And so it kind of really, bothers me when people say, oh, please, not another slave movie. I think that those stories of struggle. Now, I love a Django. You know what I'm saying? And I like how now we are seeing stories of, during slavery times of, people who resisted, like the Washington Black that's on Hulu now, that young man was a scientist. You know what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
you see all these different stories, as far as America wanting to create a narrative of one note about slavery is that we were all, destitute in the struggle. But there were
Mhm.
some people who were free, like the Gilded Age. I don't know if you guys have started watching the Gilded Age, but I mean, it was like really post slavery, but it showed Black people of prominence, regal, sophisticated. And so I'm glad that we're seeing these stories now. And you can't go further if you don't know where you're being, or however they say it. And so this is a part of our history. And I think it's important. Thanks to Alex Haley, he was one of the first people to really put it at the forefront of television.
Yeah, and as bad as Roots was, bad as what it depicted, um, I'm sure what we saw on ABC television for that week, because I think it ran 4 or 5 days or so, was probably believe it or not, a sanitized version of what really went on with Alex Haley's family and so many other African families that was kidnapped and brought to the United States. So.
Oh yeah, and Shonda H put the definition: insurrection means violent uprising against the government and government authorities in efforts to overturn it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I
Yep.
think too, when the riots, when the civil unrest happened in '92, and in the Watts rebellion, it was because we were sick and tired of the police, and we wanted to overturn their ass and get them, have some change, and still today, Black Lives Matter. We still fighting the same things today.
There
Um,
you go.
so I just, it's just words matter. And, this whole country, Stacy, sometimes you wake up on a Monday. Has he done anything yet?
Yep. Well, folks, our black-owned newspaper of the day is the St. Louis Argus. In 1912, brothers Joseph Everett Mitchell and William Mitchell founded an insurance company newsletter for the Western Union Relief Association in St. Louis, Missouri. Over time, the publication grew both in scale and reach, eventually becoming the St. Louis Argus newspaper. Over the span of its more than a century years of existence, the Argus has served the African American community without unwavering dedication. It is now the oldest continuously operating Black owned business west of the Mississippi River. St. Louis Argus is our Black owned newspaper today.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. And for the latest in news, let's see what the week will bring. If you want to know what it's going to bring, head over to BlackPressUSA.com because, of course, we're delivering the stories that are impacting and uplifting you.
Thanks always, folks, for chiming in. We will see you again tomorrow.